This is going to be a screencast for showing you, walking you through a model lesson for a narrative writing lesson. Keep in mind this is for kindergarten and it would be at the beginning of the year. I'm going to be going through a Prezi PowerPoint presentation to show you how you could go through this lesson of retelling a sequential story by touching each page of your booklet. So the very first part of your lesson you're going to start with is what's called the connection. And basically this is connecting to prior learning through the use of a read aloud, which the kids are already familiar with. We would have already read Creek Said the Bed. In fact, we probably would have read it several times. So for this connection point, it's just to connect to prior learning by going back through Creek Said the Bed and retelling the beginning, the middle, and the ending of the story. Next, you're going to follow up with what's called the teach. The teach is where I'm going to model what it is that I want the kids to do. I'm going to explicitly state what I want them to do, which is going to be today I'm going to teach you how to retell a story in order by touching the pages of your booklet. I'm going to do this by telling a story about my little boy Jacob and how he fell and broke his collarbone. This is going to lead straight into the model part of the lesson. As I'm telling them the story of Jacob and how he broke his collarbone, I'm going to be holding a 3-page booklet. As I tell what happened in the beginning, I'm going to touch the first page. I'll then turn that first page of the booklet to the second page, and I will continue my story by saying, and then, or I might say next. I'll tell what happened in the middle of my story. I'll turn the page again to the last page, touching that page, making sure I'm saying the transition words. Lastly, and conclude my story with what happened with Jacob breaking his arm. Following the model, there'll be what's called a guided practice, and this is where students will be at the carpet with one another. They're going to turn and talk with their partner. Each student will have a 3-page booklet. There's no words, nothing written on the booklet yet, it's empty, but what they will do is turn with their partner and they will retell their story using this booklet by using hopefully the same skills that I showed them by touching the first, middle, and last page and using the transition words of in the beginning or first, then, and last. Accommodations will be made for students who are not able to retell a sequential story. I'll either follow up with them in a small group after the lesson, or I'll follow up with them one-on-one. If I see that it's just a confusion because of the paper, I can give them an alternate paper choice, which is one piece of paper that's broken down into 3 parts to help them to better organize their story. Following the guided practice of the carpet, the students will go off to their table for independent practice. This is where they'll actually attempt to do what it is that I've taught them in the lesson. During this time, I will be walking around and conferencing with students, doing some one-on-one, maybe even some small table conferences based upon what I see the students are doing. What's going to happen next is called a mid-workshop teach. Basically, at this point, when students are independently working, as I'm going around the room and I'm conducting table or individual conferences, if I see that the kids have either hit kind of a lull, they've stopped working, or if I'm hearing, Miss Brown, I'm done, then I do what's called a mid-workshop teach. And this is where I just kind of have the kids pause and look up at me, and I share something I saw another student doing. I a lot of times will share that under the document camera so that every student can see very clearly and visibly what's going on. I will share, for example, that I love how I saw little Johnny, and when he finished what happening in the beginning of his story, he turned the page and went straight into what happened next in the middle of his story. When he finished that, he turned the page and started working straight on what happened at the end of his story. And then I'll encourage kids to self-assess, and I'll ask, did you guys do that? Check your paper. If you did that, great. If you didn't, let's go back and try that now. The end of the workshop of this lesson will end with what's called a share. And during the share, I'll bring the students back together and at the carpet, and we'll kind of turn and share with our writers, not just our story, not turning and just telling our story, because we've already done that during our guided practice. This is more turning and showing your partner what I did today, what skills that I applied in my story. For example, they may turn and say, "This is how I retold my story. I made sure I had the word first, next, last," something like that. And that concludes the lesson of narrative writing, retelling a sequential story while touching the pages of a booklet.